Alright, welcome back to Flash Tutorials with Alan Becker. This time we are going to go over stick figure animation and just the basics and kind of my workflow when I do stick figure animations. Today we're going to be animating this animation. Ta-da! Stick figure running up to a wall, jumping over it, and landing flat on his face. There are many animation principles that you need to remember when you're making animation or any animation in general. There are several principles to animation. The first one I'm going to go over is called anticipation. So you see as this guy is about to run forward, he doesn't just start running forward, he actually anticipates it by leaning backwards a little bit and like swinging his arms backwards as if ready to zoom to the next position. That's called anticipation, and you want to do that for every big movement. They have to there must be a movement in the opposite direction. So see, when he is about to jump, he doesn't just start floating, he actually goes down a little bit before he goes up. So that's another example of anticipation. Another principle of animation is squash and stretch. So you notice that as he goes faster, he gets more stretched and kind of distorted. So I mean, in real life, people don't actually stretch like that, but when you're looking at them really fast, there's an illusion that they do stretch. So we try to recreate that illusion in animation by making them actually stretch in the frame itself. And you see that he also stretches as he goes upward. He gets really thin right there, and then he goes normal after that. So that is squash and stretch. There's another example when he falls down on his face. Yeah, see, he stretches, or he squashes when his face lands on the ground. His head isn't supposed to be shaped like that, but because it's an illusion, it does. So another principle is overshoot, and then you can see that very slightly. Basically, whenever there's a big motion and it stops, you usually have to go a little bit past where the stopping point is and then go back to where he actually stops. So, for example, when he stops here, his head goes a little bit up and then goes down because it's overshooting, like going a little too far and then settling. Also, another example of overshoot is when he squashes, like his body kind of squashes to a like over exaggeration of his face before it rests in its position like that. So that's called overshoot. So those are some principles that you need to remember. So we're going to animate this in a new document. Let's see, do new ActionScript 3.0. No, it doesn't really matter. So to draw, I usually use a tablet, a Wacom tablet, and what I use is actually like a really cheap Wacom tablet. Back in the day it was $100. Now you can get it for $40. And it's just a 5x4 thing with a pen, and you use it instead of your mouse. Even though like you can still use your mouse to make stick figures, but this kind of helps you and makes it faster. And if you have a lot of money, you could get something more expensive like this one, which is bigger, more detail, or you can get like even a screen, so you can actually draw on the screen. A little more expensive. Anyway, so we're going to start by making a background, and I'm just going to make a pillar like that, and flatten it out like that. And so when you're making a background, you need to put it on a separate layer so you don't have to change it every frame. I mean, that would be a pain, a really big pain, and I actually used to do that. But so what we do is we just make a very long keyframe. So I pressed F5 right there, and it extends that frame. So now we have to draw on top of that frame, or that layer, with a new layer. So I go down here and I click New Layer, And now we start animating. Maybe I'll move it over here a little bit. So brush tool, zoom in, and this brush is too wide. I'm going to go and make it a little smaller. That's good. Okay, so let's see. The way I animate a sequence is I don't do frame by frame, but instead I do pose by pose until all the poses look good, and then I go in between those key poses with what's called in-betweens. So while I'm drawing, you see that I constantly hit Control Z if I don't like it, so that's why I keep my left hand always on the Control and the Z, so I can always be recorrecting myself, because life's about making mistakes. And it looks like I put it on the wrong layer, so I have to put it on the one on top. So I'm going to click or select that, Control X, and then Control Shift V to paste it in place. And so now to make the next pose, I'm going to click F7, and we're on the next frame right now. So to look at the frame before it so I can get some reference, I click on the onion skin down here, and that gives me a ghost image of the previous frame. So what I want him to do is make some anticipation. So he leans his head a little bit forward, but he leans the rest of his body backwards, has his leg go up like that, his other arm like that, and then do that. F7, next frame, or next pose, he goes like crazy fast like that. Yeah, that looks alright. Then he kind of starts to slow down. It looks like he's shrinking a little, so I don't want him to do that. And he pops up into this position right here. Okay, and then the next pose, he's going to anticipate the next motion he's going to do by crouching. So when he goes up, he's going to look very stretched like that. And then when he finally reaches the point where he kind of slows down at the top, he's going to be normally proportioned, and then he kind of does a dive over like that. And you want to make sure that his body stays along this arc, this line, otherwise the motion will look very unrealistic. So when he falls down on his face, he squashes with his elbows down there. Okay, and then finally we want him to kind of rest in a state like that. So let's see how that looks. Alright, it looks good. I mean, of course it's really fast, and it doesn't look very realistic when it's that fast. So what we have to do now is we have to evenly space out these keyframes so that they work with the timing. So I'm going to delete all these with Shift F5, and then I'm going to press F5 until I see that there's enough space. Okay, it's going to be doing that for that many frames maybe, and then that's going to be kind of quick. He does that, does that. Yeah, I mean, you're going to change these later, so it doesn't really matter. I'm just going to add some frames. So when I look at it now, it looks good, and I think I want him to have more time building up for the next motion here, so I'm going to give him an extra frame there. Okay. So, another way to scroll around through your animation is by using the comma and the period. So, I actually didn't know about this until like a year after I started using Flash, and when I found out about it, I was so mad, but so happy at the same time. So, let's see. Okay, I guess it's about ready. Ready to put the in-betweens in between the frames. So I'm going to go back, zoom in, and I'm going to have to change my brush size because when you zoom in, the brush size doesn't change with the zooming, so you have to change your brush size accordingly. So okay. So I press F7 in between these two frames, like that, and I want him to do like I want him to like start out slow and then go fast and then go slow again. It's like quick example. Let me just make another layer right here. It doesn't look as real when you do like things in a line like that, but it looks more real when you kind of make them move. Here, let me add another frame in between here. But when they move like more realistically, actually it doesn't really look that realistic, but we want to do that basically. So I'm going to delete this layer. That was an example. So we want him to start out close to his original pose, which was this right here. So gradually his arm goes like there, his other arm goes like there. Maybe it starts to curve a little bit. Actually, this one too. So they're both going to curve a little bit. And then this leg is right there. And we want this leg to start to move upwards. Okay, so I'm going to drag this one here, and then I'm going to press F7 again. So next we want to make the one that's right before the end, which is here. So his arm is really close to his original position. Yeah, like that. Okay, so now I want to do the final in-between those two in-betweens. And we gotta shrink our onion skin so we can make sense of what's happening. And we just want to make the in-between mark here. So we just need to know which arm is which. This arm corresponds with this arm, so we gotta just go in between those. These are the same arm in there. And then the legs are gonna be like that. Okay, so if I turn off onion skin and then kind of go through like that, it looks nice. Okay, so now I just want to quickly make him do that. So I'm just going to go in between those and then turn on onion skin again, open it up, and his head is going to transform from this to this, so it's going to kind of do that. And let's see, so I want to make his body go like in between that, so I'm just going to pick this point and go in between that and then draw a line from there to there. So that's an easy way to do that. And then his arm is going to kind of just his arms are just going to do that, and this leg is going to just kind of swing out like that. So, and quickly do this in between here. This in between here. Looks good. Okay. And this one we have two in-betweens, so we want to draw two heads on an evenly spaced line. So the legs are going to start to slow down, angle upwards like that. And we have to do the same here. his head is going to go up like that. Okay, looks like his head kind of gets bigger there, so I'm going to take the arrow tool or selection tool and just make it bigger. It's probably not the best way to do it. It's gonna get a little distorted. In fact, it's getting really distorted. I'm just gonna redo it. Okay, so we want to give him some overshoot. So I'm going to move this frame over and then add an extra frame where where his head is actually taller than he actually is. See how that looks. Yeah, it looks good. Whoop. And so this frame we're going to move over so he has time to go down into that pose, and we're going to do the same thing we did in the beginning, sort of. I'm going to put the first in between like that, and then we're going to do the close to the beginning one where it's closer to the beginning one than it is to the other one, then to the middle, and this one. See how that looks. Okay, so he goes up. We just want to give him maybe one frame in between that and kind of stretch his head like that. I want to keep him on the ground for the first frame. So in between these, he's going to, I think I'll just put 2 in between here. Yeah, that first one was better. Okay. So this head's going to be closer to that. Okay, he's kind of just going to float over, I guess. I don't know. So his arm goes from back there to here, so I'm just going to, yeah, I don't know, like that. Yeah, whatever. And then between these two, so yeah, I'm working really fast right now, so by no means do you have to go as fast as me. I'm just trying to get through this so you get a sense of what I'm doing. So I usually work a lot slower just to get it more precise. You know what? I'm gonna just make it 1 frame there so he goes down faster, like that. So when he goes like there, he just pops into that, and then here we have 1 frame of the head returning to its original shape. Alright, let's see how that looks. Wow, I mean, kind of looks better than the original. Not bad. Alright, so that's a basic run through of how I animate stick figures on Flash. So I'm sorry if I was moving too fast for you. I know that this it could seem very tricky and complicated from when you begin, but I just encourage you to try it out, and the more practice you get, the more easy it'll get and more natural. So my name's Alan Becker, and I'll see you guys later.